Welcome to Sewing 101, a special edition in collaboration with Fernie Pride Society for the 2020 Fernie and Elk Valley Pride Festival. Today we are going to be making some Pride-themed bunting. It's a great way to decorate and show your support. We're going to be taking our inspiration from Pride flags. If you want to know more about the Pride flags and their history, visit pride.com, where they have a complete guide to queer Pride flags. There are a couple options for the fabric packs. The traditional Pride flag in the 6 bold colours. The other option is inspired by the transgender flag of the light blue, pink and white. In the pack you'll find the fabric, ribbon or bias binding and some pattern piece options. The first step is to design your bunting. You can really get creative in your approach and we look forward to seeing what you create. There are some standard bunting shapes in different sizes and also lettering to spell out Fernie Pride. So cut out your pattern pieces and then we're going to lay them on the fabric. The fabric in your packs is felt, which is really easy fabric to work with and you don't have to worry about the edges fraying. You want to maximize your fabric use, so lay out your pattern pieces to fit as many on as possible and you can mark them with chalk or pencil. Cut out your pattern pieces using fabric scissors if you own them. These are sharper than regular paper scissors. Another option is to use pinking shears, which are like a zigzag edge. This is perfect for if your fabric does fray. The zigzag will finish off the edge and then you don't need to worry about sewing. Repeat in all the different colours so that you have all the colours of the flag. Some other design options for you, the letters spelling out Fernie Pride or the larger size bunting in the transgender flag colours with a heart on the end. For the NoSew method, we've got a couple options. We're going to use tools that you should have at home. So one option is a hole punch, handheld, and you're going to mark some holes on your fabric and punch. It can be pretty tricky with the felt as it's quite a thick fabric. And you just punch the holes. Another option is to create slits. So you can feed the ribbon through, which is what you're going to do with the holes as well. To create the slits, you could use a Stanley knife. You just want to be careful of your fingers, get help from an adult if you need to, and make sure you have a mat underneath. So you're going to fold it in half and cut the slit into the letter, and then you feed the ribbon through the holes created. The final option is to use your fabric scissors to create a slit again. You're going to fold it in half from the top of the letter this time and then just snip a small line into your letter, and I'll show you again in the frame. To finish the bunting, you want to make sure the end of the ribbon doesn't fray. So you're just going to trim it down and then use a lighter and gently burn along the edge to finish. For the sew method, we're going to be using bias binding. This is already pre-folded. You're going to measure and then mark along your bunting pieces a line, and then you're going to pin along this line along the first fold of the bias binding. Measure between each piece around 2 inches and pin in place the next piece. You're going to take it to the machine and then sew along this first folded line, and then when you come back you can fold the bunting into the bias binding and top stitch. So we have sewn along and we're now pinning the bias binding in place to top stitch along to finish. If you are a more experienced sewer or you find this method easier, you can go straight to the top stitching. You take your bunting pieces and then you're going to catch them in the bias binding, pinning them in place, To finish, you're then going to just top stitch along the bias binding close to the edge as possible, making sure that you catch both sides of the bias binding to secure the bunting pieces. If you have shapes that are not flat along the top, you still use the same method and catch any pieces that will sit into the bias binding and pin in place. You also want to finish off the ends of the bias binding so that you have a neat finish. Again, you can just turn in the ends and top stitch in place. Once you have pinned all of your bunting pieces in place, you are ready to take it to the machine. Sewing along as close as possible to the edge of the bias binding. Your bunting is now finished. It's that easy. Go ahead and hang your bunting and decorate your home, business, wherever you'd like. Thank you for joining us for Sewing 101. We want to see what you've created, so make sure to tag Fernie Art Station and Fernie Pride Society. Have a great festival!